Welcome to the Tech Ranch, live and local here on Super Talk 1270. The latest gadgets, online security, websites and apps, social media, and so much more. How can technology help you? Let's find out. It's time for the Tech Ranch on Super Talk 1270.
From our studios in beautiful Mandan, North Dakota, along the mighty Missouri River, here is your guru of
Cue
geek,
me up.
Marlo
There we go.
Anderson.
Hey, we're having technical issues today. I think there was a hard drive that went down or
From
something.
our
Jim,
studios
wasn't there?
in beautiful Mandan, North Dakota, along the mighty Missouri River, here is your guru of geek.
We will swing the mic over to you here. We apologize for that, everybody. We actually, I think the studio here actually had a hard drive failure today.
The hamster died.
And you hate that when the backup hamster isn't available. But anyway, welcome to the Tech Ranch, everybody. Marlo Anderson, your guru of
From
geek.
our studios in beautiful
there we
Mandan,
go.
North
There we
Dakota,
go.
along the mighty Missouri River, here is your guru of geek,
Marlo Anderson.
I love that. I do. Yeah. So what's on? What are the top inventions of the 21st century so far? Jim and I will be giving you your thoughts, and it probably isn't hamsters on this. In 2009, Entrepreneur of the Year, Kevin Suras, will be joining us later to talk about apps. And later in the show, Ken Sanders will bring us up to date on all the latest in tech news and developments. And at the control panel, Mr. Producer Extraordinaire.
Hello.
Jim Walsh. So.
Also known as Mr. Producer Person.
Producer Person.
Mr. Producer Person.
So you're just extraordinaire when I'm in the studio, or?
Well, I try to keep the expectations reasonably low. You know,
So that
I don't
when
want
you
to
do
disappoint
something,
anyone.
Sure. And when you do something
So
good,
far,
then it's
not been a
extraordinary.
problem. You know?
But you're doing amazingly well considering the issues that we're having here.
Oh,
today.
thank you.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the geezer's
cool,
out back right now. He's up on the tower. There's
Really?
nothing wrong with the tower. He's just up
He's
on
just
the tower.
up there. He just thinks that's where the problem is.
Yeah,
at.
he likes to. He's out looking for trolling for U-boats, I think.
Mr. Tech Geezer. Maybe he'll show up later today.
Yeah.
So we'll start off with, what do you think, in your opinion, what is the greatest invention of all time?
Of all time, I have to go the History Channel. Long time ago, they did one of those countdown shows where they did that very subject. And I think they made a good point when they said the Gutenberg printing press.
Really?
Because it made the dissemination of information possible, without which you really can't do much of anything else.
Okay. That is true.
Yeah.
And I think I would probably rank that in my maybe top two.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with harnessing electricity.
Okay.
You know, I know that electricity's been around for a long time, of course, but the ability to actually use electricity like we do nowadays, I think is, you think about it.
Yeah.
Think about what our world would be like without electricity, and think of all the other things, and you could make the same case about the press. All the things that happened because of electricity.
Right.
Or the dissemination of information. I mean, they kind of go hand in hand, actually. But yeah, electricity to me, and of course, coming from the tech side, I guess I would pick that.
Yeah.
But so that's sort of anything else that sticks out for you, maybe?
Well, you mentioned electricity, light, I think.
Right.
Because it's kind of hard to invent stuff if you can't see what you're inventing.
Right. And actually, one of the picks that I have today, believe it or not, that is still a problem in about a third of the world. Mm-hmm. The ability to have safe light. A lot of people still use kerosene or fire of some type to light themselves light themselves up at night. Yeah, to work in the evening or whatever. So anyway, so we're going to talk a little bit about inventions, and we're going to pick in the area of the 21st century, Jim and I. So in the last 14 years, what sticks out for you as the top invention?
I don't know. The internet, would the internet fit within 14 years?
No,
Probably
that
not.
actually goes back to, you could actually go back to the 70s.
Yeah.
And actually, the 80s is when it started to become a little more popular.
Back
of course,
when Al Gore invented it, yeah.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, in the 90s is when it really, really took off. And you think about how quickly the internet took over everything. It's amazing.
I would say the mobile developments.
Okay.
Mobile technology.
Okay.
That's a big thing right now.
It is. And of course, we had cell phones before, 2000. But
remember the original cell phones?
Oh, my
the very
goodness.
first ones were like
huge.
big. It's like holding a brick up to your ear.
It's funny to watch movies and stuff from the 80s when they were actually...
And big old walkie-talkie things.
Yep. And people thought that was pretty cool, too. I've been watching... I don't know why I get into some of these 80s sitcoms, or sitcoms and other shows, but Miami Vice has been my latest... And you know, I stream a lot of stuff with Netflix and that type of thing, and it is kind of funny watching. You know, they're all dapper in their 80s suits or whatever, and they pull out their cell phone, and it's this huge brick. You're like, where did you hide that? Because it's kind of amazing. But
I saw a movie the other night about there was some kind of one of these disaster movies.
Okay,
and there was this one scene where everybody's lined up to use a payphone.
Right.
You never see that anymore.
When's the last time you actually seen a payphone?
Not in a long time.
You know, you think about an industry.
I mean, they're out there, but...
They are, but I can't say maybe in a hotel someplace I've seen one, but I haven't seen an outdoor payphone anywhere in forever.
Where does Superman go if he wants to change his costume?
That is a great question.
I mean, Lois is falling off the building there with the helicopter, and he can't figure out where to go to change his costume.
He'll have to figure something out.
Yeah.
So anyway, 21st century, you know, I would go maybe with the ability to use GPS.
Sure.
Yes,
Satellite.
GPS has been around for a while too, and in fact, the history that I have on GPS, I have it here in my notes someplace, actually was thought about in the 60s at the height of the Cold War.
Yeah.
Inspiration came from the launch of the Soviet spacecraft Sputnik. And that's when the inspiration came for some type of global, position satellite.
Well, that changed a lot of things. It changed education in this country. Once again, we started getting interested in science education.
Sure. Actually, because there was the big race, wasn't there?
That's when they brought teaching evolution back in the schools.
Okay.
Because of the emphasis on science after Sputnik.
Interesting. The so anyway, and I look at GPS and think about all the things that are happening now because, yes, it's been around for a while, but I think the ability for the person to use GPS has become pretty mainstream since the turn of the century.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I like about GPS is that it has brought our seasoned citizens kind of into technology because a lot of people, if you're a little bit older, probably didn't embrace computers or things right away, but they always seemed to have GPSs in their cars.
Yeah.
And right away, of course, it was GPS units that you bought standalone. Of course, nowadays we have them in our phones or they're built into our cars. And I think some people still buy standalone GPSs for whatever reason. But
the geezer still has a Dixie cup with a kite string.
Nice.
I mean, that to him is high tech. Positively
cutting
edge.
I suppose a Dixie cup on the other side of that string, he could use it as a phone as well.
He's still trying to get Dick Spiderbeck in the make-believe ballroom on that thing.
Oh, funny stuff. So anyway, 3D printers, I think, is another one.
Yeah.
I suppose we're coming up on a break now, aren't we?
We are coming up
on
a
break.
break.
So I guess we'll continue our discussion, Jim and I, about the inventions of the 21st century. And hopefully, if we don't have technical issues, Kevin will be joining us after the break. So come on back, everybody.
Follow the Guru of Geek at Facebook.com/The Tech Ranch or Twitter at Guru of Geek or TheTechRanch.com. Here again is your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we want to welcome all of our listeners across the country and around the world who follow us on Blueberry, on the Blueberry Networks, the Tech Podcast Networks. Of course, we're now on TuneIn and our own app, Radio Pup. So all kinds of ways that you can listen to the Tech Ranch. And on the phone, Inc.'s 2009 Entrepreneur of the Year and CNBC's top 15 innovators of this decade. I don't know if we're supposed to bow to Kevin or what we're supposed to do here, but Kevin Surace, how you doing, Kevin?
Good morning or good afternoon. How are you?
Yeah, we're bowing in your presence now here. So
no, don't do that. But thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, we're excited to have you on, and you have been extremely busy in your career. You have 23 patents. I'm just reading your bio here that I think your agent was so willingly given me here a little bit ago. 28 acquisitions that you've been on both sides of the table with. So you have been around tech for a long time.
I have. I came out to Silicon Valley in 1985. Went to school at RIT in Rochester, New York, large tech university there, and And I've played in a variety of areas in tech since then, and it's been a really wild and fun ride.
So some of the, we're actually talking about top inventions of the 21st century so far. So before we get into our discussion, where would you weigh in at as the top invention of the century so far?
Of the century
yes.
so far. Well, I think the big change to everybody's lives is essentially putting a supercomputer in your pocket. That is a smartphone.
Yep.
And that wasn't exactly invented. Now, I was at a company called Air Communications. We had arguably the first smartphone back in the mid-'90s, but it was way too early. The internet wasn't ready. People weren't ready. The cost wasn't there. The size wasn't there. But people had experimented with this, and it took Apple and Steve Jobs to come out with something that everybody would use and change the way we interact with the world. And one of the big changes was apps. I mean, we sort of forgot about quote-unquote applications on the desktop for quite a while because everything was on the web. And all of a sudden, you could write apps, put them on the phone, and they could work with all the compute horsepower in the phone and talk out to the world. And now you've got health applications and things that monitor your body and things that monitor buildings and things, and they all connect to that phone that then connects out to the world. There is, we've gone from no smartphones to 1.1 billion or 1.2 billion right now. The numbers are staggering. The changes that has had in our life and will continue to have is staggering.
And I love the segue that you provided because you're actually here to talk about apps, correct?
Well, yeah. So I'd love to talk about AppVance for a minute. Happy to do that because I think it's an interesting topic. One of the things that's happened over the last decade is great sites and apps, and Google, Facebook, Amazon, from an e-commerce standpoint, have figured out that people have a waiting time, a patience time of under a second to get that response from a site or an app. And that's what people expect. And as long as you've got pretty decent bandwidth connection to your home or your office, you do a search in Google, and it really, the Google response rate technically is under 100 milliseconds for virtually every reply. I mean, great transaction times. 100 milliseconds is a tenth of a second for your listeners who don't want to do that math. And of course, Amazon has done this as well. That one of the most obvious situations with Amazon is if it ever comes up and says, hey, put in your credit card for this order, you've changed addresses, or say you put in your credit card, it says, thank you, your order's on its way. Now, even if you put in garbage numbers, what they decided to do is process that card in the background, not making you wait for it. Now, go to the JCPenney site, not to pick on Penny, great company. Go to JCPenney site, put in your credit card. It says, well, wait 2 minutes while we validate your card. Now, I'm thinking, during that 2 minutes, you start to think, I should go to Amazon because this is uninteresting. So great sites have taught us now that response rates are instant. Now, that's 2%, 3% of sites and apps that we interface with. The rest, some of them are horrible. They're back, in the mid-'90s. And
Sure.
We see this with apps on our phones. We see this with sites on the web. And it's not unusual for us to go somewhere, search for something, do something, whether it's e-commerce or something else, and the little thing starts turning, and you're waiting 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 6 seconds, and it lost your interest. So the best sites, the best apps, the best IT teams recognize they better have every transaction happen in under 100 milliseconds. And that's what AppVance does, actually. We test sites and apps for their makers to help them identify the bottlenecks that they have that keep them from getting to 100 millisecond or better transaction times and make their customers leave, because that's what's happening.
Okay. So, and of course, I didn't even introduce you as, with the new company that you're with, or maybe it's not so new. Why don't you tell us a little bit about AppVance and how long you've been with them?
Yeah, I helped sort of restart AppVance 2 years ago. It was actually an open source platform for about 12 years, spun out of Sun Microsystems, for those who remember Sun, now part of Oracle.
Absolutely.
And it was a test platform in open source, but the community wanted so many features and so much support that it became unwieldy to support in an open source way that is free. So we brought it into a commercial venture called AppVance, and over the last 2 years began selling to some of the world's largest corporations, from Pepsi to 7-Eleven to McKesson Bell Alliance and others. And these are people who are really trying to drive their transaction times down and make sure that their apps scale and don't crash. A lot of times an app on your phone, it just locks up, crashes, and closes or something, and it's because the servers may have been loaded. It's because the services it was talking to maybe came back out of order. If you don't test those things, you don't know.
Right.
And customers just rate it 1 star, and they erase it from their phone, and they move on.
Yep.
The days are gone when anyone's going to put up with that. I'm going to give you one great example, and the best example that we all know of is healthcare.gov. And not to pick on our fine government, regardless of which side of the aisle you're on, but that was a complete and utter failure from a website perspective. And the primary contractor was CGI, and they subcontracted out most of the work to a company called QSSI. Neither of them had any experience in scaling sites to millions of concurrent users. Zero. No experience. And by the time they launched, not only had they had no experience, they also didn't do any scalability testing, which they should have done 8 weeks before launching. And they should have debugged all of those bottlenecks that they had. So they didn't. People got on, waited for minutes, turned to hours, turned to give up. Now, this isn't an e-commerce site. This is I need my insurance site.
Right.
So, this isn't a let's make people wait for hours. All those transaction times should be in the hundreds of milliseconds or faster. So we offered to the government actually to uncover the bottlenecks. We said we'll do the work for free. It's a service to this country. It's the right thing to do. And, of course, they said, we can't do that because we don't know how to take things for free, and we've already got these contracts with these other people that we paid hundreds of millions of dollars for, and. And eventually they got around to making it better. Much of what made it better is the rush was off, and so the load went way down, 90% less than it was at the beginning, and people realized they had 9 months to sign up, not 1 week, and that really helped the most.
Okay.
But it was poorly designed, and it's a great example of people who left out performance testing. Didn't even think about it.
Yep.
It didn't dawn on them until there was a problem. Then it's too late.
And the one thing with health.gov, of course, is that people are actually motivated to stay there for a little bit longer. You would never get somebody who would wait an hour for a website to come up in almost any other situation.
Right.
So
no, because there's too many other alternatives. Healthcare.gov is a monopoly.
Exactly.
So you had to wait.
Yep. So that's a great example. So where do you see app testing and that type of thing going in the future?
Well, there's a lot of companies that specialize in different aspects of testing your apps. We're on the performance side. There's people who monitor the performance of sites after they launch. We're all about uncovering the problems before you launch so that you can find them and fix them. There's other things like source code testing and things that happen before us. Look, I think the technology is now there to build sites that respond as fast as Google responds. You can absolutely do it. The scalability capabilities are there. You can put your site at Amazon. It'll scale to whatever number of servers are needed to give you the response rates that you need, provided you architected it right. And to architect it right, you have to test. And I would say more than 90%, just using sites and apps, more than 90% of companies out there just don't do credible performance testing that includes all of the code from the beginning to end.
Yeah, and I would agree with you, actually, Kevin, because they actually want to have real-world experience, or people going on the site to test it for them. That's their research and development. They would rather, I won't say rather have it crash, but that's what they're expecting, because that's what's been the norm to this point.
That's been the norm, and what happens is either they crash or today, typically they just get slower and slower and slower, and then you lose your clients and they don't come back. We've seen what happens to our major clients, and when they do test, and these are large development teams that have developed highly scalable sites and apps before, and they think they're going to be good to 500,000 concurrent users, and it turns out they're good to 200. I mean, literally on the first test. Sure. And then they go and they work it and they get to 5,000. They go and they work it some more, they get 10,000. And had they not done this level of testing, all of their customers would have gone on there and suffered slower and slower and slower response rates, and a lot of them would have left. And frankly, by then, the developers are off developing the next thing. Probably nobody even knows. They get some complaints, but what they've really done is disappointed their clients. And when you disappoint your clients today, they don't just leave your site, they leave your brand.
Right.
And we've seen this. And that's a serious issue and a big change from what it was 10 or 15 years ago when they just go, well, it's not a good site, but I'm going to go to the store. Well, now it's like, geez, if these guys can't get an app right or a site right, I don't need to be there. I'll go to Amazon because Amazon is always fast, and it's the largest store in the universe, and they can respond in 100 milliseconds. I think they've figured it out.
All right, Kevin, we're against the clock here. How do we find you again?
Appvance.com.
Kevin, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Let's talk again.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
We're back to the Tech Ranch. Stream this program now at supertalk1270.com. Here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
Yeah, we just had a nice talk with Kevin Surace about testing apps and websites and that type of thing. I thought that was very informative. Again, if you need to know more about what he was talking about, go to appvance.com. Jim and I in studio today, and we're talking about the inventions of all time, what we think is the best. And now we're going to turn our attention to the inventions of this century.
Iced coffee.
Oh, now that's a great invention, actually. Yeah.
Some right here. Caffeine is the powder of positive thinking.
It's amazing, actually, when you take a shot of coffee or something, how it gets the mind going.
Oh, yeah.
So you go from this we won't go any farther than the caffeine.
I'm getting all Walter White on you.
Yes, exactly.
No, it's just caffeine, folks. It's just coffee.
So, as we were, listening to Kevin, did you think of anything else maybe that kind of comes top of mind now for inventions of the 21st century?
I was thinking more in terms of how cool it is. I'm not a young guy anymore. You and I are, we're not spring chickens.
No, we're not.
But we're both fascinated by all these new wonderful toys.
Yep.
I remember the line from the Joker in the Batman movie, Jack Nicholson, where does he get those wonderful toys? That's exactly what I think. Where do we get all these wonderful toys?
Yeah, you guess you think about that. I never thought about the toy industry. I mean, you and I probably played with, I know I did. I played with dirt and sticks. I mean, we liked it. Now the kids nowadays, they would just run away from that kind of stuff. But
the geezer, for him, dirt was high tech.
That's exactly right.
High-tech
That's exactly
dirt.
right. Yes. Well, there's a lot of cool stuff that is coming out. Of course, I think, even with Kevin, the jury's in about, smartphones and the abilities that they give us. Probably the fact that we have a supercomputer in our hands nowadays makes a big difference to everybody. The other thing that we haven't really talked about a lot in this show, but we talk about a lot on other shows, is 3D printers.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think, I think 3D printers may become the invention of the decade, but we're not there yet.
Not yet.
But it's coming. And because I think the ability of what 3D printers are going to do is you talk about paradigm shifts in the way we do things. This is one of those things. And the ability to print what you need, and granted, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is small. Like if you broke a knob on your control panel right now, if you had a way, or if you had the plan for it, the 3D printer would actually print an exact replica of it.
Yeah, a button comes off in your hand, which happens sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
It happens in your car sometimes.
See, and imagine that ability to just go home or back to your office and print that part.
Yeah.
Those things are happening. Imagine if you're on a spacecraft and you don't have to carry a gazillion parts anymore. You just carry the filament that you need to make parts.
Right.
And if something breaks or whatever, you just get the plans and you print it.
Just allow for so many pounds or so many grams of plastic to have on hand.
Yes.
That you can use to make whatever it is you need to make.
And, of course, now there are printers coming out that do metal.
Yeah.
So you will have that ability in the future to print metal objects, and I would imagine sometime in the future there are people that are working on this now that you can integrate the both of them. So you would have metal and plastics that can print together for a combination type of thing. So all kinds of great stuff. Food printers. There's food printers coming out.
So Jean-Luc Picard can get his Earl Grey tea.
That's right. Hot. That's right. It's not quite a replicator, but yeah, no. But I think, food printers, it's more about presentation, so you'll be able to print somebody's name across the top of whatever, make a chocolate bar or what have you. As that progresses, I'm sure there'll be more types of foods that can be printed as well.
Well, they already got the Coke bottles coming out with people's names on
them. Yeah. So there's all kinds of great things that you'll be able to do. But probably, we talk about the parts replacement and all that type of thing. And actually, you think about it, if you have a 3D printer and you order something online, well, in the future, will you just buy the plans? So instead of paying, $100 for an eyeglass frame, I'm just taking that from what you have on there, maybe you get the plans for $5 and you print them on your own.
That's an idea.
I mean, I really believe that's where we're going with that type of thing. And then, of course, you get into health. And I think that's where 3D printers are really going to make a huge, huge impact in our lives, because they're already experimenting. Well, you and I have talked about this. We had the doctor on 6 months ago, whatever, that replaced the guy's ear.
Some guy needs a new heart valve of some special kind.
Exactly.
And you just contact whoever, the Mayo Clinic, and they send you the plans for it for your 3D printer. You can print one out.
What about orthotics? And people who have lost limbs or whatever.
Shoes,
I mean, there's all kinds of things that, if you had the ability to, make replacement parts for your body, oh my goodness. And that's where we're going here with this. I mean, like I said, they've already experimented with ears, and that process doesn't take months. It takes a day. I mean, you go into the doctor's office in the morning, and they take a sample of your DNA. They put it in this bioplasma stuff, and you come in later on, and you got your ear.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I can see dentistry.
Yes. They're already working on that. There's if you have to have a hip replacement or whatever, you don't have to worry about them modifying a knee or something like that's been made in a factory.
Right.
To kind of fit it into your body. They will just scan what you have now and make an exact replica of what it should be.
Tailor-made. You.
Yes. Yeah. That's where we're going with this stuff. So we're talking almost everything in your body in the future might be able to be replicated with a 3D printer. There was actually I just seen it last week. A 3D printer that was working on a burn patient.
Oh my!
And replacing skin. So they didn't actually have to graft from another. Like what they do now is they graft from another part of your body.
Supposedly, chemically, is not that far removed from plastic.
Right. So now they were using this 3D printer, and they were actually using cells that they took from another part or from his body, and then recreated skin, and this thing actually printed over the top of the burn, and it took just it was, and I don't want to misquote anything here, but it was a dramatically less period of time to heal. But it did heal. That's the other thing. A lot of burns, of course, don't. So a lot of possibilities with 3D printers, and I think we could literally go on and on and on about 3D printers. I love the topic, and I love what's going on with 3D printers, and I just think it's going to be revolutionary. One of the issues with like you and I as we age now, our body parts are wearing out, and of course that's when we start talking about replacements of things or whatever. Well, this is going to be a common day thing here in another 10 or 15 years. I truly believe that. So just when I'm old enough where my golf game will start to suffer a little bit because my knees aren't working so well, I can just go in and get brand new knees that are just like my old knees used to be. So pretty cool. Let's see what else we got in here. A product called Automatic. Are you familiar with Automatic?
Automatic?
Yeah.
No.
This is actually pretty cool. Another thing that I think will be changing the way we do things is autonomous vehicles. Now, you and I talked about this, cars that drive themselves or whatever.
You get in a car and it drives you.
Yep. Of course, Google just came out with they're releasing 100 cars now that have no steering wheel in them or no accelerator. You just get in the car and you say, "Take me to Starbucks," and it'll take you to Starbucks. So that's pretty cool. But of course, many of us don't have that ability or the pocketbook, that it would take to buy these right now. So there's a device called Automatic. And if you have a car that's newer than 1996, this thing plugs into your car, and it actually will tell you your driving patterns. It will tell you what that engine light means. It will map for you, so you can get in there, and there's a version that you can speak to, so it ties into your GPS and tells you how to get to Starbucks or whatever.
Right.
So pulls data on your driving habits and tallies your gas usage and that type of thing. So this actually kind of is getting maybe even your older vehicle. It won't be self-driving, but you'll have some technology in your car that will allow you to maybe start doing some of the things that autonomous vehicles will be providing for you in the future. So Bounce. Are you familiar with Bounce?
Bounce?
Not the fabric softener.
No, I was going to say.
Although maybe that's an invention of the 20th century that we need to be talking about.
Yeah.
You know, how our clothes are so soft.
We don't have to iron anymore.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm not good at ironing.
I'm not either.
Never have been.
So I like a nice crease pants or nice collars. I'm grabbing my collars here that
Permanent
are not
press.
so creased. Yeah. Yeah.
But Bounce.
So anyway, Bounce is an imaging explorer, and we've actually talked about this in some degree or another. It's a ball that you throw into a burning building, and it has sensors on it. And it's got 6 cameras on it, or 8 cameras, whatever, so you can see it on your iPhone or your Droid or whatever, what's going on in there. It'll take heat readings. You know, if you're police and you're not really sure what's going on inside that room, it's about the size of a baseball.
See if there's people in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just throw this thing into the building and kind of see what's going on. And what's cool about this, besides that fact that it's cool already, is that it's not that expensive. They start at about $1,000 and go up to $3,000 depending on the thing. So, you know, even for a small police department or fire department or whatever, $1,000 is actually not so bad.
Yeah.
I don't think so. So yeah,
Save lives. I mean, if you don't have to go into the building
absolutely.
to see if there's a problem.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Or if somebody's in there with a hostage situation or what have you. You know, a lot of things that I see there. Speaking of 3D printers, though, MakerBot, and this is probably the one thing that you have an issue with, Jim, is that how do you create? I got a can of Diet Coke here, but how do you create this can with a 3D printer, right? Well, MakerBot now has a digitizer. So you put this bottle or this remote control that's sitting here, you put that on the digitizer, and it scans it with lasers, and a webcam. And by the time it's done, it'll take what it saw, and then you can input that information into a 3D printer, and it will create an exact replica of it. So you don't have to, try to do a 3D, CAD cam type of situation, where you're programming all this stuff. You can actually scan a 3-dimensional object and then print it.
Yeah.
So that is absolutely huge. You see a little caricature or something that's rare that you got around your house and you want to make a replica of it, you put it on this digitizer and it will do that for you. So cool. Absolutely cool. Well, anyway, after the break, everybody, Mr. Ken Sanders with the Volt Report will be here to talk about the latest in technology and tech news. So come on back.
Follow the Guru of Geek everywhere he goes. Post your comments or questions at thetechranch.com. Once again, your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And, of course, joining us for his weekly talk from the Volt Report. I got to work on my Ed. Oh, I forget his last name now. Big Man. That's right. I'll have to work on his whatever. Anyway. Ken, I'm really messing up your introduction here. Mr. Ken Sanders, how you doing today?
So good. I'm just getting ready to try some of this highly technological tooth remineralizing toothpaste that I got off Etsy.
So, well, tell us about this.
Oh, it's great, man. Apparently there is a method based on studies of the Amazonian tribes that never had cavities that says that tooths with cavities can be remineralized, and those cavities can actually heal over if you supplement them with calcium and comfrey root.
That goes beyond everything that we've ever been taught.
It sort of does, but it makes sense when you look at the historical documentation of cavities and people that have been dedicated to particular diets, that by getting the proper nutritional supplements, their teeth never actually lose their strength. They don't develop cavities, and by giving your body those nutritional needs that teeth take in, added the healing properties of this comfrey root powder.
How do you spell that, Ken?
What's that?
How do you spell that? Comfrey.
Oh, man. Comfrey root, I guess you can grow it. You can buy the seeds and grow it. I mean, I Google searched remineralizing toothpaste, see if anybody had any already made, and they got it on Etsy, and I found some.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I'll let you guys know how it goes over the weeks, see if I see some progress.
So do they give you like a timeline as to when you will start to see progress? I mean, is this something that happens relatively short term, or is this ongoing? Really?
Like 6 to 8 weeks.
Really?
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, that's your job now for the next 6 to 8 weeks is to tell us if you are going to be cavity free.
I will.
All right. That's pretty cool. All right.
Uh-huh.
So, Jim and I have been talking about the inventions of the 21st century. What do you think is the greatest invention of this century so far?
Has anybody mentioned 3D printers yet?
Yeah, we just talked about it for 15 minutes, so
no doubt.
But
that
why do you think
heavy on my mind when I first thought about it?
Okay.
But I'm gonna say that I believe the iPod.
Okay.
You know,
that was also
Kevin
Suris was on a little bit earlier, and he pretty much said the same thing. The ability to have a supercomputer in your pocket is pretty amazing too. So
yeah, there you go.
So all right. Well, let's talk about the the EEG hardware that you were just talking about on the break here.
Yeah. Okay. That coincides perfectly with the technology in the pocket thing.
Okay.
All right, so, everyone's familiar with Google Glass.
Right.
Okay, so they made it even easier for your smartphone programs to be accessed by just putting them right in your eyeball. In lack of words, better words. All right, so then one thing that people aren't so familiar with, I feel like right now, and I'm sure you guys, in the tech club have heard about this, but EEG hardware that basically monitors your the voltage in your brain and seeing where the signaling process is going.
So the idea behind it is if they can monitor it, you can actually think something and it will do that. So if you want to, the long-term thing would be like if you think that you want an app to open up on your smart device, which of course is in your Google Glass, that it'll just open, so if you want to take a photo, you just take photo and it will take a photo.
You're wearing the Google Glass, you just think to take the photo and it snaps it.
Right.
Just like that.
Right. So that's what we're talking about here. Are we close?
They've already got it working.
What?
Yeah, it's called the Mind Reader app, RDR. Mind Reader.
Okay. So
you put on a very primitive EEG headset. It's not even the more high scale emotive epoch one. It's one that's made for like kids games.
So is this the same? Does it look the same as Doc had in Back to the Future? I mean, is that what it looks like, or?
Yeah, pretty much.
had a colander on his head with a couple of wires coming off of it. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
The little nodes, it's not so big. It's so awesome though. It's just it's got one little node right on your forehead, and you wear it with the glass. So you're already looking goofy wearing the glass, so you don't look too out of place wearing this little node on your forehead. Awesome.
So have you talked to anybody that's used this yet, or?
Yeah, I discussed it briefly with Anastasia, one of the people over at in London at the company that developed the technology. It's called This Place. And their business is actually to kind of work with companies to help them digitize their products a little bit, but they just had the idea to integrate the NeuroSky headset product with the Google Glass. And she was just pretty much elaborating to me that right now it's working with Twitter and Facebook both. The product can be adopted to anybody's Google Glass right now if they have Google Glass, of course.
The long-term ramification of what we're talking about is immense here. I mean, you think about, if what you're talking about is actually working, people who have prosthetics, for example, if they can think to move a prosthetic limb, oh my goodness, that's absolutely huge.
Right, and that's why this technology is going to be a game changer, not just for Google Glass, but the industrial applications of being able to just think about things and have them, on command.
Unreal. All right. Well, if you want to know more about this, go to thevoltreport.com. Of course, we have links to it from the techranch.com as well. But Ken, there's another one. I'm not going to get to everything you have on your website today. The rollout laptop. Tell us a little bit about this.
It's a concept design. It's a concept from 2011. It's really cool concept, though, because with the futuristic technology, they basically take this tube, they stick it in a glass of water, and it absorbs the water, and using oxygenation, they create electric current, which they store in supercapacitors inside this thing. And it's also based on the technology that, soon our smartphones and our tablets will actually be little flexible rollout screens.
Right.
You seen those?
Yeah, and I've actually seen those a couple of years ago at CES. They were it's what I call the jellyfish screen. It was actually kind of accidentally developed by somebody who was researching jellyfish and why they illuminate. And they've actually developed this material that has been turned into basically screens for us now. Alice and I, my wife and I, we were actually playing around with a touch screen a couple of years ago that was as thin as a piece of hair. It's crazy how it's just ultra expensive, but that price has really been coming down a lot.
It'll only come down more until they're working with LG or whatever.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you'll see. And the wonderful thing about this and what you're talking about here, is powering your laptop basically with water. And the reason it works is because there is so little electricity needed to run this screen that the ability for smaller and smaller power cells or batteries or whatever, we're not increasing the size of what we store in a battery. It's just that we're decreasing the amount of energy that we use to power these things.
Look at that. It's more powerful and consumes less energy.
Yes, exactly. I had a calculator. I need to pull this thing out one of these days that actually ran on water.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, I had this thing like 10 years ago, and occasionally I'd pull out the calculator and start working with it. I'm like, why isn't my calculator working? I'm like, oh, it's out of water. So I would actually go fill the thing back up with water, and people would just get freaked out about this because it actually ran on water. It was the coolest thing. So
yeah,
so
who'd have thought?
All right, any other last minute things that we need to talk about here?
Well, right now, I think another big thing that we got on the Volt Report right now, besides, the EG hardware and everything and all that good stuff, is the grown meat. I don't know if people know it, but there's meat being produced in laboratories right now, like from Petri dishes, stem cell meat.
Okay.
They recently served. I didn't hear about it at the time, but at SXSW there was a panel who was served steak that was grown in Petri dishes, and it went over pretty well.
Really? Yeah, I'm just reading it right now. So it was steak chips that were served to scientists or to the live panel. And what kind of response did the scientists have about it?
They said it tasted like beef jerky. They wouldn't have been able to have even known the difference that from regular old meat.
So do you see this going someplace?
I definitely do, but not because, PETA is engaging a fight for it, but because Bill Gates believes that, meat supplies are going to be running low as the population grows, and we're going to be searching for alternative sources to where we get our livestock.
I see. So is this something that, in areas where they can't raise livestock, that this could be a viable alternative as well?
I believe so.
All right. Well, Ken, great as usual. Thanks for being on the show. And, of course, anybody who wants to know more about what we just talked about, go to thevoltreport.com. And, Jim, thanks again, man.
Always a pleasure.
It was fun today, and we look forward to talking to everybody next week.